That to me is like how I operate, is that we thinking that other people have always found their thing, but we're always recreating ourselves. We're always finding these new pieces, because to me life is about discovering who you are. And these projects that we do, it's just like it's pulling these interesting aspects out of us, and birthing to ourselves what we are. It's like each thing reveals things about yourself, and you're like, oh, I like that, I want to do more of that. Inside of everything that you're doing is actually allowing you more capabilities for your next best work.
I will run, I will rise, I will grow like the world's never known.
All right, so the first time starting this show, Evolution of One, it came from my friend Oscar, just having great conversations with him at the beginning of COVID. I was thinking of another friend I had used to work with, Wayne, and Oscar's like, oh, I'd love to be in that discussion, and so we made it happen. And this is Oscar and Wayne, and we kind of just chat about what creativity is as a professional in different genres. Oscar has a design background, Wayne is the technical side, and I kind of flex between the two sides. And we talk about how creativity is overarching all of it. People that I work with that are super technical don't often associate with being creative. But Wayne is one of those people that is absolutely very technical and extremely creative in his realm. And we kind of talk through that. And I think I want to break that out of, a lot of times it lives with the design community, and I don't think it should. I think creativity and art and design actually are much broader appeal, and we all have this creativity in us, no matter what field we're working in, no matter what industry or how we deploy it. The root of it is actually the same, and so we kind of get into that a little bit. So I hope you enjoy.
Oh, hello there.
All right, we're recording. We're good.
I don't really remember what my question. I said, I don't know. What did I say? Hey, Wayne, what have you been up to?
What have you been up to? Yes.
Yeah,
so I'm going to try and condense 3 years into just a couple of minutes, because I could probably spend a lot more time than that. But then you would feel like you're being held hostage on your own podcast. So what have I been up to? So I would probably summarize it in terms of just exploring new things. Since leaving my previous job, which brought me here to Idaho, I've been trying a lot of different things that probably I would never have gotten into if I was still in Texas.
Obviously.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you guys may have remembered, like, I went through a massive physical transformation before I left Texas. And I've kind of taken that to the next level and to explore other cool things that are related to fitness and stuff. Mm-hmm. So for example, since it actually snows here, I've actually come to embrace the cold and the snow and get into cross-country skiing. That is my passion now. It's pretty amazing, actually. And it's something that I never thought that I'd ever be interested in or get into, but it was one of those things where it's like, I can't go running when there's 2 inches of ice on the road.
Yeah.
And so I got to thinking, man, I should try something different. And I'm like, hey, I could probably go rent some skis. And
is this a normal, like, are just like I feel like there's joggers here, for anyone who might be watching, the 3 people who watch this, I don't know, like, living in Texas, we have joggers outside. Is it just like people are just like, I don't have no idea, I've never lived somewhere where there's normal?
So I will say that I do cross country ski in the street. I am the only person who does that. However,
you're that guy.
Yeah, I am that guy. Who's that weirdo? But we do have a city-run cross-country course out in the mountains, and there are tons of people who are into cross-country skiing here. And the reason why I bring that up is it's just something that I just tried on a whim, and it turned out to be one of the things that I'm like super passionate about. And done some races out at West Yellowstone and up in Rexburg, and also built a cross country skiing fitness app on iPhone.
Obviously.
Of
Yeah.
course. Well,
Yeah.
some things you
Plug.
give up, and some things you just keep going, right? And now it's like I hate summer now. Like summer is just the in between time for cross country skiing. So
Well, it's good thing it's only like 2 months in Idaho, so it's pretty much winter year round. So
I know, and so
You're in the right place.
September's coming, which means snow is not too far away, and so yeah, I love it.
Nice.
As we're talking, Wayne, I'm reminded of so Oscar and I also have another like mastermind. We've been meeting with other people, and I'm recognizing, because I think you asked the question, Oscar, in that other meeting, like what kind of like brings it all together, because I'm just like reaching out and like gathering a lot of interesting people. And I think one of the threads that I'm recognizing and that I missed with working with you was that
Handsomeness.
not being afraid to, did you say handsomeness?
Yeah, yes. That's, keep going. Sorry.
The not being afraid to try new things. It's like not even not being afraid, but it's almost part of just how you think. It's and that's, I think
Yeah.
that's definitely something I see that a lot with Oscar and a lot with myself, with you, Wayne. As you're talking, I'm like, I love people that are just like, I'm gonna try something new, and then lo and behold, you're like, I love this. Like you never stop trying new things. You never know what thing's gonna pick up that you haven't tried before. That's gonna be the new ice cream for you. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I love this thing. So I love that about you. I'm happy to hear that. I think that's awesome.
yeah, and not everything's a home run. You're gonna try new things, and you're gonna obviously come across stuff that you really love, and some other stuff that you're really not into. A couple of months ago, I had a friend who lives in Virginia, started getting into leather work and stitching and stuff. And he was making some really cool stuff. I'm like, hey, I should give that a try. And I bought a bunch of stuff and started working with it. And I'm like,
Not doing it.
yeah, this is probably not my thing. You're right. But I can scratch it off the list and say, all right, leatherwork's not my deal.
Yeah.
So, Wayne, I don't know about you, like, I feel like I'll go like 6 months and I'll get really into something, and I'll, start learning all about it and I start doing that thing, and then I will somehow pivot into something else and I get really interested in that next thing. Do you do that, or do you think you stay with something a little bit longer? Are you a very squirrel, or?
I can be squirrely. I can be very squirrely, but some things I will stick to just to say, I really did give this, all my effort, and so it wasn't because I wasn't good at it, or I couldn't, I plateaued or whatever the case might be, but it's just like, well, it wasn't my thing, and move on to something else. But like all things in life, those experiences, not just the home runs, but all the things that you kind of failed at or were kind of mediocre at, those kind of funnel into the things that inform who you are and inform your experiences, and shape your future experiences that may actually turn into home runs as well. So
I don't know if you've thought much about this. Something that Mark and I talked about is like, can you think back on your childhood? Is there something that you think sort of, or things that caused you to be this way? Like, where you're just like, oh, I can figure this out, or I'll give this a shot next. Where you see other people, I don't know if you're like, do you see other people kind of just like, they'll stop. They're like, nope, I don't have to do that. I'm going to stop here. And I remember you just being like, I will figure it out. Let's just go. And I assume you're still that way. Can you think back? Like, what do you think caused that with you?
You know what? That's a really interesting question. I'm not sure that I've fully thought that out.
No worries.
I don't know. I gonna write that down because that is a existential question that deserves some thought.
I heard you say something interesting also a minute ago, which was like giving it all, which was interesting to me because I feel like I'll switch topics, you know, or get into something where I'm curious about it. And there's like, I feel like for the most part, there's normal people that may just hit up a Wikipedia page, but I'll go and actually like get a little deeper. But to me, you go all in until you like figure it. And I get deep enough where I am like, okay, I understand how this works. I get the high level structure. I could modify this code. I'm not going to write it from scratch. Next thing, like, you know what I mean? Like that equivalent in just different categories. I'm just like, I will go deeper than most people, but then I'm like, okay, next. Like I just want to collect as many things at a moderate level.
Mm-hmm.
Wayne, my memory of you is someone that's like, I'm gonna go get basically as close to mastery on this thing as I can, and then maybe you'll pivot to something else. I don't know. Is that a true statement?
I think that would be a fair characterization. You know, there are some things that I'll go light on or just, you know, mediocre, but you know, there are some things, very, very much some things that I just go all in on because, you know, I find it interesting or satisfying or serve some, you know, other purpose besides pure enjoyment. You know, but I can be, you know, just as squirrely as you're describing, right? And my next sort of harebrained exploration. Have you guys heard of the Flow Hive?
No.
Oh, you got to check this out. So,
is that a dance move?
Is now.
Yeah. No. So I go Google this sometime, but I'll briefly describe it. But basically, it's a kind of a Kickstarter that these Australians put on 3 or 4 years ago, and the problem they were trying to solve is, you know, they had, you know, they were beekeepers, and there's a ton of work that goes into beekeeping even before you start harvesting honey. But getting the honey is actually probably, I would describe it as a non-beekeeper as the most difficult part. Because you've got to extract the cells, and then you've got to use this thing to basically hot carve off the caps on the honeycomb, and then you've got to, you know, the process of getting all that honey out of it, and then you have to run it through a centrifuge to filter out all the wax and gunk and dead bees that, you know, happen to fall into the honey, and it's really labor intensive. Yeah, it's not fun at all, right? And so they came up with this Flow Hive. So basically, I'm going to dork this up, but imagine this was a, you know, hexagonal shape with my hands here. So what they did is they developed these plastic cells, and then you put a key in and turn it, and it basically causes the cells to offset like this, and then the honey just, you know, flows down, and then basically you have the spigot hooked up to your hive, and you just literally open the spigot up and drain it into a honey jar. Well, anyways, so I thought this was a really cool idea, and you know, I'd actually considered in San Antonio. I even went and like researched, you know, beekeeping laws in San Antonio, and you know, can I keep my own hive and whatnot. And it was about that time that, you know, I was leaving San Antonio, but that didn't, you know, so that didn't pan out. But I got interested in it again, and my dad, who actually lives behind me now, that's a different story altogether. But he's like, hey, I'd never told him about this, and he's like, you want to get into beekeeping? And I'm just like, yeah, I do. I'm like, check out this really cool thing. And I like showed him the Flow Hive and all this other stuff. He's like, let's do it. And so, so our next little journey in learning and whatnot is we're going to run our own little beehive and see how it goes.
So did you just answer my other question though? Like, is this your dad's doing? Is he wired the same way, and you just observe that and?
It might be. My dad can be. Well, okay. So yes and no. So my grandfather, he passed away a year ago, and one of the things that I kind of learned about my grandfather, and I'm disappointed that I learned about this after his death. I kind of knew it, but learned it more about it after, which is a shame. But my grandfather, I would describe him as a polymath, right? Are you familiar with that term?
No.
Okay, so
No.
a polymath is somebody who's like an expert in not just one field but many different fields. So
Okay.
if you look at Leonardo da Vinci, he was a polymath. Not only was the guy, just a master artist, but he was a master scientist. He was a master inventor, right? And his intelligence was not, geared to just one particular field of study, but he went super deep in so many areas and was hugely influential in many different fields that maybe on the surface don't seem related or whatnot. But you can tell from Da Vinci that the reason why he was so good at art is because he understood basic principles like perspective that almost nobody was really doing at or before his time. And his mastery of that didn't translate into just good art, but also translated into good things like physiology and anatomy, right? And being able to conceptualize things like helicopters that were hundreds of years ahead of his time, but he understood a few fundamental principles and applied the different things that he learned to the things that he got interested in. Now, that is all to say that I am by no means any Da Vinci in any way, shape, or form. But I put my grandfather in this category of people who, when he went all in on something, he was really good at it. Okay, so he was a master archer. He's the kind of guy that in the cartoons, would be able to shoot an arrow through an arrow through an arrow on the bullseye. He was so stinking good at it, right? But not only that, he was just an exceptional carpenter. But not only that, he was a computer programmer. But not only that, he was a pilot. Not only that, he was an artist, right? And he just took all these things that he got from his experiences and kind of compounded them together to just be really stinking good at a lot of different things. And to some degree, my dad's the same way, but probably I wouldn't say as good as my grandfather is. And, I put myself, a couple notches below my dad as far as that as well, that, we just like, going deep on stuff and learning the crap out of things. And then, that leads to tangents and other, seemingly unrelated areas.
Yeah. No, that resonates with me a lot. That's a lot of similarities there.
I think that hits on exactly what we were talking about before we got started, of that, how creativity, you and I had a lot of discussions about this before you left, Wayne, about creativity and how I always felt like I never lived in any one place. I didn't really connect with the developers that, I was never fully in the design. Like I live in many places, and I feel like I can operate and work with many different people. And I always felt like there was a downside. Like I always felt like, man, I don't have a place, but I felt like that one of the things that I started realizing is, and I think this is what kind of we were talking to, is when I'm realizing the people I connect with are people like me, like like you were just talking about, like that I think that completely explains how I think about you. Is you were so incredibly creative, and that's why I loved working with you. Is you were so great at understanding all the technical side of it, and it took that weight of like having to figure that out. I knew that you would like come up, and then we would challenge each other. And that was the fun part, is like, I knew enough to be able to be like, well, wait, what about this thing? And you'd be like, no, that's right. And no, but you can't do that. Right. And there was this, this creativity inside of what's traditionally like just technical, like it's not thought of. And I just really, the more I'm looking at it, it really breaks down for me. And you always stand out as one of the people that really broke that down for me. Is you were so highly creative, but that was overshadowed by your technical depth, that people were like, well, he's a technical person, and they didn't notice if you were just take a second or work with you on any project. Holy smokes, like there's no end to the level of solutions that you're able to craft with someone else that can lead down a path, and your ability to map with that other person in a design role or in a product design role, like any other person, like you can pair them with your stuff. And I think that that's actually like, you don't find that a lot. Or
Well,
you don't
thank
find that
you.
all the time. So yeah, it's one of the things that has just really intrigued me and made me expand my definition of and what I think. The reason I wanted to talk about it is I think everyone should like take a step back around what creativity is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think one of the most satisfying experiences that I've had in my career was not in my day job. It was being creative with other people who are creative in their respective fields. I don't know if Oscar, you knew about this, but Mark, do you remember my my iPad storybook app?
Yep, I knew. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly
and
what I was thinking about as well.
yeah, and the reason why that was the most exciting sort of collaboration that I have had is because I got to work with people who were really stupid awesome at what they do in their field. And, I got to work with a really just very, very, very talented illustrator in Indonesia. And I got in contact with a really, really, really talented musician in Austin. And I was able to bring kind of the technical and storytelling aspect of things, but together we were able to create something that was better than the sum of our parts. And to me, that's where creativity really shines, is when you bring your expertise in your discipline and mix it with other people who are experts in their discipline, and together you're able to build things that you alone could not achieve.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Yeah, Oscar, I think of you too. In your role, we've talked about this before, but your level of range and being able to apply design to any part that you're asked to contribute to is, I think, one of the things that I really love working with you is that you take what you have and then you move it over to the business side and applying the sort of the mindset of a designer in a business type role, and being able to carry over, kind of like we were talking about, Wayne, of like you don't lose anything from doing new things. I think there's the thought of like, I just have to do this one thing and be really good at it. But when you take that and move it over to another area, you're not really starting from zero. You're bringing a lot of those tools and skills that you learned, and that tangential knowledge that maybe wouldn't have even applied directly in the design, but the way that you view it gives this whole new world to it, which is, I think, very, very interesting. And when you set off on project, because I know you did that on your own, right? That Adventures of Alex was like, you're like, I want to do this thing, and you sought out these people. That was like you actively going, and then you orchestrated it all, and it brought out this part of you. And I think that I think a lot of people just don't take that next step of initiating their own projects. And I think that's one of the things that I really admired about you, Wayne. You're always picking up a new project, and and I really admire that. I think that it's important as an individual to understand who you are by just adventuring out and figuring out, hey, can I do this thing? Can I make this illustrated book? I can't do everything, but I could do my thing really well, and delegate those pieces that I need from high level experts, and I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I think that's a craft in and of itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of like what Wayne's talking about, just I don't remember. So first, I'll say, I feel like I just started to get to know and work with you, Wayne, right before you left. Like
I know, right?
We hadn't really, we were kind of like around, but it just started, and then he's gone. So it was a little off. So I think I was still in a design role when you were around, right?
Yes, you were. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then when there was an opening on the business teams, quite a few of them came and were like, hey man, there's an opening, you should probably apply for that. And so eventually I was like, all right, like, let's go ahead and do that, right? And so that in combination with just being around people like yourself, to be quite frankly, it was being in that role, and some of those other experiences made me realize that the value that I brought was different from what I was sort of boxing myself into. So I kind of thought of myself as only a designer. And it wasn't until really afterwards that I really reflect on it, and I'm like, it sort of is, what I was good at was that I was able to pull in these different things that I was just nerdy about in general. And I think that role helped me get good at sort of being collaborative and pulling stuff. And I think for the most part, I look back, it was like, I was just asking questions. I would surround myself by smart people and say, what about this? And how about that? And more often than not, what would happen is they'd go, well, no, you can't do that. But if you're looking at it this way. So I realized I was really good at looking at something from a different perspective. And as long as I knew enough about it that I could just sort of come at it from these different angles, as long as I was in proximity of people that were very deep, my moderate level like was enough to spark something that goes, oh, I hadn't thought of it from this direction. And then we get something really good, right? And so I think that's probably why in the last few years, I really doubled down on just like, I want to consume as many new data points as possible. And I don't need to go deep. Like I want to get deeper than most people because I want to make the connections. So conceptually, I want to understand, but I want to move on to the next thing because I need to collect them, because I don't see myself as someone that's like particularly deep in one thing. I see myself now as sort of someone who's really good at just kind of like seeing things from a different angle. And I want to be surrounded by people where I kind of go, how about this? How about that? And I mean, I also like the mentality, and I feel like you had this too as Mark. It was just like, hey, this needs to get done. Like, so if it needs to get done, then let's just do it. Like, I don't know, do it. We'll figure it out. Like, what's the big deal?
Yep.
We live in an amazing world. You can Google anything. There's no excuse for like not knowing how to do pretty much anything now, you know?
Exactly. And I would just point out, Oscar, something important here. And that's that I feel like breadth of knowledge gets criticized when compared to depth of knowledge. And I think that's wrong. And you know, some of the experiences I've had and some of the different things that I've come in contact really kind of inform me that depth is not necessarily superior to breadth, like many people tend to emphasize. And one thing that really kind of stood out to me in that is several years ago, it's been a long time now, somebody leaked the employee manual for Valve software. If you know Valve, they've made really awesome games like Half-Life and Portal and Left 4 Dead and just a whole slew of just awesome video games. And one of the things that stood out to me in that leaked manual is kind of their conception of the ideal employee at Valve. And that ideal employee, they kind of describe in terms of letters. And they describe, you know, a person who is super deep, but only in one area as kind of an I kind of person, right? The letter I, it doesn't occupy much horizontal space, but it occupies just enormous vertical space. What they prefer, however, are T's, people who have just enormous breadth of knowledge. And then in one area, they're just like really super deep. And where they're able to make the most contributions are in that vertical space. But it's the T part where they're really able to relate to other people and make associations with things that if they were just I people, they would never make. And ultimately that's all creativity is making associations in your experiences and finding different groupings or connections to things that other people just haven't recognized yet.
Totally. And I think to your point, you know, there's a lot of emphasis on that depth. And I think that there's significant value to that, but you can't discount the variable of breadth. And I think that's sort of what I came to realize over time and started saying, oh, I should double down on this. and increase my breadth. I want to know enough to be dangerous here so that I can, once again, surround myself with people that are smarter than me and say the thing and let it, make the connections. That's the part that really fascinates me. It's sort of like very rarely does disruption or innovation ever happen from someone like within the industry. Like if it could have been solved with depth, it would have already been solved.
Yeah.
It typically is like the injection of someone with breadth to come and say like, oh, that looks like this. That looks like this beekeeping thing over here that I did, right? Like we should just apply that something. Like, could we just do this? And then you get somewhere.
Right.
And so to me, it's sort of like once that started to formulate in my brain, I was like, oh, like I am more than I thought I was this, and really I can apply it this other way, and it opens this whole different door. It totally changed my entire trajectory of where I saw my life going, because I was boxing myself in one thing. I thought it was visual design even, right? Or user design. But whether it was visual or whether user, like ultimately what I was good at was observing, making observations, finding patterns and correlations. Like Mark and I have talked about this. When it comes to design, when it was just visual at the beginning, it was, let me look at like really good sites. What makes them good? They align to grids. They do this. They use this type of typography. This is in style right now. Understanding what those patterns were and then mimicking those patterns. And then it became UX, and it said, okay, well, how do you get people through these flows, or what's more likely to do that, right? And it became observing the things that cause the. And so when I switched roles, I started to apply that. Like a lot of people were like, oh, you don't want to deal with the politics, but I actually found that really fascinating. I was like, oh, to me, that's UX. Like it is, what is it when I'm talking to somebody new? What information am I presenting to them? What order am I presenting them? What words am I using to get them to take the action that I'm looking for? The politics fascinated me. That to me is interesting, because I want to know how to get the result I want as fast as possible. And even leading teams, it's like, in our department, I may have a different team working on something every 3 weeks, and a whole different makeup from different locations. And to me, the fascinating part is like, I need them getting comfortable with each other. I need them, they may have been mixed up. They weren't at core scrum at the beginning. How do I get them to bounce ideas, to argue with each other as fast as possible? And so the last few years has been like, every time I get a new one, I try different things, and I'm trying to break them down. I'm trying to get them to talk and to move quicker, because the faster I get to that, then we get to the good stuff, right? And and so this all just to say, like, once again, I thought it was one thing, and then I was able to apply it later, and it just totally changed my perspective of me, which was just, hey man, just like sit back and make some connections and watch what happens. Like you don't need to do all the things every time. So it's kind of taken me on a weird path, but so far it's been great. Like it definitely feels like a differentiator amongst my peers, as opposed to, I think if I had stayed on a much more design track, it'd be a lot harder to,
I think kind of going along with what you're saying, when you start doing those things and talking, because another thing that you didn't talk about, but I know that we've talked about before, was like really getting to understand the team, like getting to understand like what motivates them, like what are they trying to do, and then like them realizing, you being able to help facilitate what they wanted to do that actually moves the project forward at the same time, right? Anytime that you could have those things align, and the only way to do that is to make connections, like real connections with the individuals, the participants. Like it's not just guys, figure it out and go do it. It's very much, it's what's going on in your personal life. Like what are the things, like you're really good at getting past the objective at hand. And I think that's important to talk, because a lot of times it could be seen as like the way you kind of talked about it, might be looked at as like politics is about manipulation, but I actually think it is more about like understanding underlying motives. And that's ultimately what UX is, right? Like why are the users wanting to do this? And that's the core of what
it's not purely transactional.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
it's only manipulative if your intentions aren't genuine, right? So like my genuine, like, yeah, we have a job to do, whatever. But more than that, I want to make sure that the people on my team are fulfilled, they're happy. I don't care if they want to if they want a job somewhere else, like I want to help them get that. In the meantime, we got some stuff to do, but like, we're also gonna, like, what can we do to get to that thing, right? Or how do I get these opportunities? Or if I know you like this thing, then let's go do some more of that, right? But
or like those two things don't have to be
Mutually
separated.
exclusive.
Yeah, mutually exclusive. Like you
Right.
wanted to go to do this thing and you really wanted to do this technology. Well, like maybe that could apply to the project we're doing, and then that that
Right.
helps you get to where you wanted to go. Like I think helping people make those realizations, sometimes it's like right in front of them, and you just need someone to go like, well, hey, just do this with that, and you're almost where you want to go. And I think you do actually a really good job at doing that. I think it's been
Thanks.
fun being on a lot of projects with you and seeing you do it, not just with me, but like other people as well. I've seen that in action, and I think that's really important. And I think that's what I was trying to stress, is that you're going back to what you were saying, that intention behind what you're doing, I think is vitally important to the overall uh, whatever it is you're doing. I think the intention has to be pure for the end result to actually get where you want to go.
And to be
Yeah, I think-
meaningful.
Yeah, I think like as the complexity of what I wanted to achieve went up, and I realized that my ability to execute wasn't, like, on my own wasn't scalable, that I needed other people. It sort of it lends itself to the thought process of, how do I get other people to be as passionate about these things, and to feel as fulfilled about these things. And I mean, at the beginning, it was very selfish. I had an objective, and I was trying to think, how do I get them to do this? And it was through that process over the course of the last, I don't know, years, that I realized that, ironically, the answer was that my needs were secondary and that theirs were primary. And as soon as I sort of disregarded my needs, I was like, yeah, okay, that needs to get done, but stop. I'm going to focus on you for a minute. The more I did that, the better I got. The thing that I like, my secondary goal was like that. The entire thing was better. Whatever it is we were producing, it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter if we were like, hey, we need to sweep the floors and mop the area, right? Like, if you present it in a way that, I don't know, and if people trust you, I mean, also, I don't know, now we're getting into a whole different team dynamic conversation, but yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, one of the things that's kind of interesting that I've seen, tell me what you guys think, but I've noticed this. I started down this path, right, of doing, magazines and content creation around living life intentionally. And it was started out of the idea of, I wanted to create a laboratory for how to create products and do it in a way that actually could, from a business perspective, like, how do I do it so that every magazine I sell, I'm not losing money? It was like my objective. And originally I was like, they're two different things. Like, I have my day job and I have this thing. And what I've seen is that the more that I pursue these, seemingly side tasks, or like going down these different things that really bring out the side of me that I love, it finds its way back in to my day job. Like, I know when you reached out, we did that magazine that we gave to executives.
Yeah.
And it's something that no one else had really done before, like a physical copy in a digital age.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, if they're used to always getting these digital or emails and stuff, having them come into their office and have a physical printed magazine that they look through stands out. And so that comes back in. And I just had the same thing where I started pulling back in some video work that I've been doing, and my design stuff always gets weaved in. I kind of live in between development and design a lot. That's my, like, where I like to live. I feel like that's where when I talk about my tea, I feel like that's the area that I'm most potent. But it reminds me of
like a bad odor. That's Mark. Okay.
That's right. But it reminds me of a conversation we had, Wayne, of it was the talk from Steve Jobs where he talks about it was when you were leading a group discussion about creativity, and it was a quote from him when he said, maybe I'm mixing things together, but I was thinking about you. I know that we had talked about it, but he talks about you can't always know ahead of hand. Like you can only make the connections in reverse.
Yes.
Whereas like
absolutely.
now, 6 years later, like I look back and I'm like, oh, because of that decision, it led to all these things in my day job and out of my day job. But when I started, it wasn't like, hey, this is going to come back into like what I'm doing with my life. Like
there was
it
no
was just an
master
exploration.
plan scheme that you knew beforehand, right?
Right. It was like, I'm curious. Like I've had this thing, I'm going to do it and see where it goes. Yeah, I'm curious from your guys' standpoint, what have been those things? Like I know when all these projects that you've done on the side, how have you seen that really make shifts in your career that have helped you?
So I've looked in. I'm probably going to give you a rambly answer, so I'll try to be concise. It's interesting. If I go back to like university and the field I decided to study in, and I decided for myself, what, if I just do the coursework, I'm probably going to be just mediocre at best, right? And so it's like, well, to really learn this, I'm going to have to find a project to do to act as a vehicle for me to do that. So I went and built I called it Semester Tracker. Basically, it was a web app that you could plot out, your syllabus to know when all your stuff was going to be due. And so I could really self-organize my whole semester and not be in this constant state of, oh crap, I forgot something, or I did this like way before I really needed to, right? And be really organized. Well, that vehicle really kind of cemented some key, computer science topics in my head that I don't think that the coursework itself was really helping me do, right? And that same mentality of using my hands to build stuff and try it out and find some practical application of it, informed me that, hey, if I try things, then I'll learn them better. Well, when these awesome little devices, these little pockets in our computers arrived on the scene, it's take that same approach of Objective C is so like completely different from anything I have learned up to this point, right? And reading through a book's not going to help me. So, I'll just go find a project. And so I went to my favorite taco stand and let's make a taco app for you for free. And of course, they would never refuse that, right? But I saw it as I get this golden moment to make something real and useful for somebody else and have them kind of tell me what they want and tell me what's important to them, right? And then this becomes a vehicle for learning this thing that's completely new and different from my programming experiences before. And that's just been the same pattern I follow with all these different things is let's just not read a book on it. Let's do something practical with it. And that sort of working with my hands, even if it's just typing on a keyboard, that gives me the experience to then apply different concepts or apply them in a different way and different use cases that people might have than I traditionally work with. And that same pattern of just doing and applying to me has helped me in every aspect of my life, like literally every aspect. And whether it's your religious life or your relationships with other people or learning something new for your day job or just learning something new because you're curious, that same pattern of let's not just read about it, let's try to do something more concrete than theoretical. It just has led me from one place to another, and ahead of time I couldn't have planned out where I am today, just like we were talking about, but it's following that just moving from one place to a next, and you do start seeing and recognizing, oh, my ability to pick up something new and do something interesting with it is a really useful thing, that no matter what I touch, I will find some use for it in the future.
Yeah. So mine's kind of similar. Like I have similar stories, but I think my pivots or my like when I go into something is usually to solve a problem that I have in my life. That it's not usually like, oh, I'm gonna go make a thing. It's so when I went to school, I think my degree was like multimedia and web design. But back then, I'm gonna age myself quite a bit here, but back then, they, we did stuff like mixing boards, and we did like sound editing, video editing, photography. But when it came to the web stuff, not discounting the fact that we were using, what was it called? There was like a program for like making CDs, interactive CDs. And I remember the programming language was Lingo. I had to learn Lingo, and we did some Flash stuff back then. We thought that was going to be the future.
Flash, man.
That didn't work out. But either way, like when it came to HTML, what I noticed was that at the time, what they were doing was they would just say like, oh yeah, so this is HTML. They'd show you how to make a table and fill the color. And they were like, oh, here's a class on Photoshop, and here's how you make a box, and here's how you fill the color. And then just because I had things I needed to do between classes, or I had friends that were on the graphic design track, I found myself, I would sit in the back of the room in some of the graphic design courses, either waiting for my friend or I'd be trying to finish like other work. And I'm listening to them, and they're doing color theory and typography and how they lay things out. And I knew early in that it would culminate in a portfolio at the end, but we all had the same assignment. So I'm like, we're all going to have variations of the exact same portfolio. And if I just do the coursework, if I don't push, so that the code didn't, I didn't struggle with it, but it didn't I wasn't passionate about the code aspects. I'm like, hey, as long as it doesn't break, right? Like if I just do the minimum, as long as like I know how to do this where I don't break it, then I'm good. I'll get an A. But how am I going to differentiate? And so I said, I'm just going to sit in more of these classes and start applying these physical. So the graphic design courses, like they covered anything that was physical. So they did billboards, business cards, brochures, and then the web people did CDs, like things on a screen. And it was very but they left out all of the design fundamentals of that course at the time. And so I feel like a little bit of Slumdog Millionaire, and I just kind of stumbled into, I just sort of said well, how much of that can I apply over here? And so because I wanted my stuff to stand out. And then next thing I know, every job after that was like, I don't need you to code. I have developers. I want you to do design. Just give us, you don't have to even cut it up. I just spent years making PSDs of things for clients, and the, developers, or even as I worked on my own, I just sent them the PSDs. But even today, something that I think you guys all do, which is sort of, I will give it a shot, is if I see a problem or I have an issue or I see someone else with a problem, I'm like, hey, let me see if I can, how do I help? What do you need? We'll figure it out. What's the, and I mean, it was when I got annoyed that I couldn't open and close my garage door without paying a subscription fee to the whatever, that I was like, oh, I'm going to go look up some alternatives. And then, that alternative required me to sort of mess with Node.js, learn a little bit of Python. And then the next thing, I was like, well, now I want to do this other thing. And then that sort of got a little bit deeper, and everything kind of
it snowballs, right?
To me, yeah, it's sort of well, okay, I already knew how to do that. I couldn't have jumped to this point if I hadn't done the other thing 6 months before. But now I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, this is about the same. The syntax is a little bit different, but I get the gist here. Oh, they're just hitting this API. Okay, cool, I got it. And so once again, I couldn't write it from scratch, but I can go grab the pieces, jump in there, and I'm not, I stair-stepped into it. And I find that that's the way I've been just in life is, but I think you guys, one thing I really appreciate is you guys go make stuff. I've told Mark this, I would love to do that someday, but I haven't found the thing that I'm I want to go make that now. Usually it's, either I'm trying to do something in my regular life or someone else is trying to do something, and I'm like, hey, let me help you. And then I'll hop in. Whatever that is. Like, I mean, we just did a video at work and nobody could do it, and so they knew that I had some, and it's like, oh yeah, like I messed with it. So I just used that as an opportunity to get back in After Effects and learn a bunch of new stuff while I was in there. I'm like, well, if I'm in here already, I should just learn a little bit more about.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oscar, didn't you just hear him? He said, quote, I don't make stuff.
Yeah, I know.
And like 30 seconds later, you're like, After Effects and videos and all this stuff. And
yeah, but like,
don't sell yourself short, man.
Yeah, but it wasn't like I made it for myself. It was, they came and they were like, we want to do this thing. We don't really know how to do it. And I was like, oh, I think I see what you're trying to do. That's pretty cool. All right, well, I'm busy. Have you asked around? Have you asked these people? Yes, you have. Okay, well, I can knock this out. Let's talk about it and let's just do it and we'll figure it out.
It's the same thing.
I know. He's trying to pass this off as this was no big deal. I just
I know.
But
busted out this video and After
stuff
Effects
out into the App Store and Mark's making magazines, things that people can interact with. The stuff that I'll go do. It's just for the one or two people that I'm.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, Oscar, what you're doing is, I saw this in a tweet several years ago, and it has stuck with me ever since. And this tweet was, don't get stuck comparing your cutting room floor with somebody else's highlight reel. Right? You're saying, well, I'm not putting apps in the App Store. And it's like, I'm not like doing amazing stuff in animations and After Effects. And that's a skill that I look at as like, wow, I wish I could do that.
They can.
And so can you. That's what I'm saying.
I think this is a really important part that I want to like highlight for other people. Like in my mind, it's like people that are coming like in college or going to college. It's like, this to me is the heart to say, like you're thinking that the high value is on putting things out into the world, where it's the exact same thing, whether you're publishing a magazine, publishing to the App Store, or doing these internal projects. Like, some people, they just do things for their family, like you did. Like, I got the garage door thing working. Like, it all comes from the creativity. Like, the important part is that you're doing those things, and you need to take a step back and realize that we're all in the same boat here. We're all doing the same thing, but from different aspects. And I think that's really important, because a lot of times we get, as individuals, we're like, oh, well, I'm not doing it like this other person, that's actually success. Like, mine is just, the things that I'm doing. You always discredit the things you're doing. And I want people to recognize that, like, that's what I love about creativity, and why I think it's so important to be affluent, or not affluent, but fluent with creativity. Like, that needs to be the language you speak, because it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could apply that to any task and you're going to be successful. And we so often just discredit ourselves, and we need to recognize when we're doing those things. And so I think it's really important.
Well, not only that, but instead of thinking in terms of success, think of it in terms of meaning, right? For me, making an app, that fills some gap that I see, brings me meaning, right? And that's how I express that. And Mark, makes magazines because the process of, shooting photography and coming up with prose and bringing those together in a creation and having the physical embodiment of it brings him meaning, right? And the video you did wasn't because, you felt like you were the best in the world or whatever. You saw a need, and you saw some people who would get value out of that. And that brings Oscar meaning.
That's one thing I've learned over the past few months is, and I don't know if it's changed or if it's always been there. I guess it always has been. It's been stronger now, I think, probably because of my role, but it's real. Like, for me right now, it's other people. If I hear somebody needs help with something, like, I want to go, like, okay, what can I do? Like, let me go and I think Mark and I have talked about this. Like the one it really sort of dawned on me was back when we were at work. You know, it's a very large building, and I was on some far other end coming back from some meeting, and I'm walking down the hallway, and for whatever reason, I either hear a beep or I see something. I notice this copy machine is jammed, and I just divert. I walk over there. I don't know anything about this thing. I crack it open. I'm like, there should be like an open thing here somewhere. I open it, I de-jam it, I throw it away, I get it going again, and I walk away. Like I couldn't, but that's like, I realized later, like that's like my life. Like if I see something no one knows I did that. Like, in fact, stuff was spitting out. So someone tried to print something and they noticed that it wasn't like, they obviously didn't get it and they didn't take the time to figure out what was going on. They just moved on with their life. And because it just starts going, right? And but I just, you know, in life, if I see something, I don't care if it affects me or not. Like I'm just like, oh, well, I don't know anything about this copy machine, but I mean, let's just try it. Like I'm not gonna break it, I don't think. So
Oscar, don't sell yourself short. That is a valuable characteristic and valuable part of who you are that, in my opinion, is more valuable than publishing an app in the App Store by a long shot.
I mean, I acknowledge that it's powerful, and I appreciate that about myself. But I guess that is to say, I admire, or part of me wishes that I had, like there was something that I was so passionate that I wanted to like birth it into the world in that way. Just because I feel like my contributions are other people, and I'm happy with that, I guess, to some extent. But I'm just like, yeah, if I ever found the thing, I would totally do it. It's not a matter of, but I just am like, there's nothing that I want to spend my time making. Like, I don't know.
So why worry about it, man?
I don't know. I guess I don't know.
I mean, here's the other thing too. Like, here's the way that I think. Like, we're young. Like, we're like really young,
Mm-hmm.
and to think like we're accruing
Even
these
Wayne?
skills. Yeah, we're all like super young, and we're accruing these skills that who knows. Like again, we can't make these connections looking forward. We can only make them looking back, and who knows that like all these things you're doing when you stumble upon something, like when you're 53, you're like, dude, here's the thing. And because of all of my experience, I know exactly how to execute on this. There's pieces that I don't know, but this like, yeah, I think that to me is like how I operate, is that we thinking that other people have always found their thing, but we're always recreating ourselves. We're always finding these new pieces, because to me, life is about discovering who you are. And these projects that we do, it's just like, it's pulling these interesting aspects out of us and birthing to ourselves what we are. Like that's kind of like how it is to me. It's like each thing, like you de-jamming that copier, it's like it reveals things about yourself, and you're like, oh, I like that, I want to do more of that, right? And I think it's really important to recognize that we're just gaining these skills that at some point you'll have acquired what's necessary when that moment comes, that you're like, okay, and now here's the new thing that I'm going to do, because you've learned all the tricks and trade to be able to make it to that point, right? And just like you talked about the stair stepping, like it's that fractal, you know, inside of everything that you're doing is actually allowing you more capabilities for your next best work. I think that's one thing that I've been really big on, is like you're always, you know, getting something that's getting you to your next best work. And we focus so much on like, well, I'm not going to publish this, or I'm not going to do that. And to me, it's like, just, you're always moving forward. You're always improving. And you just don't know what's coming and when that moment will hit, when these things align. And, you know, for me, I feel really happy that like at 28, I stumbled across this thing that I'm like really passionate about. And maybe one day it won't be, you know, maybe someday I'll just be like, you know what, that was really great, I'm ready for the next challenge. Like,
yeah,
what's the next thing? And not having any expectation of it, but just like accepting that, I don't know, that's, to me, it's It's about uncovering who you are and not putting in an expectation or having outside opinion, just being like, life is a discovery. You're always going to be finding out new pieces, and new people that you meet are going to pull out new pieces in you.
I love it, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like back to what I was saying earlier, just for myself, is like the last 2 years really has been acquiring as much knowledge. Like I'll find a new thing and I'm like, oh, I want to learn everything about, like, and once again, I'm not going Wayne deep, but like, I'm like, okay, next thing.
Please,
like,
please stop holding me up as the paragon of
I'm
awesomeness.
trying to,
I'm not worthy of that. I assure you.
I'm just trying to collect as many data points as possible, because I don't know how they're going to be useful later. And as soon as I recognize that, it's like, okay, like in my free time, I'm going to spend some time reading about this random thing. And it's always different. But it's because I know that I recognize that that's where I'm able to add some value in the world. And so I was just like, I need to start doubling down on it and making sure that I want more. I want more of that ability to do that. And so I try to spend my free time investing in those random things so that I can. So yeah, I'm always sort of like, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to do? I don't know how it's going to apply to anything, but I kind of have this like weird tentative list in the back of my head about like 3 or 4 things I'm probably going to start looking into next. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm not going to let you go, Oscar. I want to dig on this for just a little bit.
Like a therapy session. What's up?
So I just feel like you're selling yourself short on some qualities and some attributes that are actually not as common as you might think they are. All of us know a person, and I'm not going to name this person on the podcast. We can talk about it later. But there's a person that all 3 of us I know that basically he is really super awesome good at creating relationships with people.
I'm right here with you.
And I know, right? And he is really super good at bringing the best out of people, no matter who they are, no matter who. Like you can find, some bozo, and he just has this really great talent in bringing out the best of anyone. And he was put in a situation where he had some doubts about his ability to do that. And his self-doubt was seated in somebody, basically telling him, you're not a developer, you're not a programmer, and really kind of diminishing his self-worth as an individual because that was not his strong suit. And he was expressing some of those self-doubts to me. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, you are not a program developer, but you know what you are? You are a person developer. And you know the code behind people, and you know how they think and how they work, and you bring out the best in those kinds of people, and you find challenges with them, and you try to help them and get better at them, right? And so, Oscar, don't sell yourself short and think that just because you're not a developer that you're not part of the cool kids club, or whatever the case might be, right? You have value, and you have things that you're good at, and you should use those talents to enrich everyone around you.
I appreciate it. That's the hope. I'm at a point now where I keep saying, like, I need to try to find the new next thing, and I have a sense of where I think that is, but it's going to take somebody weird enough to give me a shot. Just like someone gave me a shot to move from a design role to this weird business role. I remember being in that interview and sort of saying, like, yeah, you don't have anybody like me on your team, and I think that's a good thing. Let me tell you why I'm already doing half the stuff that you need. And now I'm like, I need to do that again, except I'm like, I feel like, I don't know. I feel pretty confident that if I get into an interview, or if I actually get a job, I will be, like, you give me a year and I will be at the top, like, if not the top performer, I'll be in the top 2, because I watch and I learn, and I I steal. Like I'm watching to see what your best people are doing, and I'm going to mimic those best traits and mix it with the other things and
put your own flair on it.
Right. I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be able to master pretty much any subject or thing I need to go do. But how do I convey that? You know, in my brain is like, I look at my resume and some weird thing, and I'm like, someone's going to have to just be crazy to come take a chance on me. I think I know it'll pay off for them. But as I'm looking at it right now, I'm just like, man, I don't know if I would call me in for an interview on this thing, because the stuff I'm applying for, you know, they're looking for this box. And I think, you know, in the role I'm at now, it was because there were people that knew me and vouched for me, or, you know, the person that hired me had a sense for what, had heard about some stuff. So I had an in there. But to do it blindly now is like kind of scary.
It's tough, isn't it?
I think it's less scary. It's more like, the scary part, I think, is just, will someone actually give me that opportunity to show them I can do the next. I'm like, I can do that. I just need someone to roll the dice here, because, you know, especially as if you're looking at like large companies, they're doubling down on these systems that are like looking for keywords in resumes.
Yeah.
They're basing it off of years of experience in specific things. And so I suspect I'm going to get filtered out pretty quick, just based off the way the algorithms work. As I've looked into them, I'm like, okay, how do I increase my odds here? Because I'm probably going to get filtered out, even though I'm doing half of these things already. Anyway, sorry, we're on a tangent now, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting applying as someone who's very much now like a generalist. Like I'm kind of doubling down on it. Like if anything, my specialty is people. Like it's not, you know, spent the last year learning different technologies or different areas or different groups. Like the subject doesn't matter. Like put me in there. I'll go learn that thing. I'll learn how the back end systems work. I'll learn the front. Like I understand the business portion of it, and I know how to communicate those things and present the information in a way that builds consensus and gets people on board. Like I can hit all the marks, but it's only because I'm such a generalist in those things and this weird mixture of life experiences. And then it doesn't come across in a resume. And I sit there, and I've been staring lately at it. I'm just like, I don't know how. In all honesty, I probably haven't even submitted it to like 1 or 2 places, but I don't know. Sorry. Now I'm just like, now we're really getting therapy session on this feeling. I guess I'm highlighting the problem with being that much of a generalist, I think, is, we talked about it before, people value specialization. It's much easier to say, yeah, I've had this many years experience on this one specific thing. And I'm like, you know what? At some point, like, that's fine if you're like developer 321, whatever. But once you get into like a higher level, like we live in that Google, like there's nothing that your specialist, if they sit next to me, I'm going to be like, hey man, like how often does that system back up? Like, you know, when is the, you know, they just say like, oh yeah, it happens, you know, every Tuesday and Thursday. And I would say like, you know, well, what's the, they have the knowledge. I just turn and I go, hey, what's this? Or I just look it up in the system and I have it. Like, there's nothing that the specialist has that I couldn't look up or just turn and ask them. And so I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, this actually hits on a part that's always been difficult for me as well. Because I feel like what happens is you see a lot of people like looking for a very specific thing. Like they're looking for those people. Like, I just need someone that could do development. And I'm like, cool. Like I could come in and I could do that, but then I can also do these other things for you. Like they don't realize, because the system, the way that things are set up and the way that school teaches you, it teaches people to look for those type of like specialists. And that's what jobs are out for, is I need this person to do this task. And I struggle with that too. It's like, it actually is really hard. And maybe we'll rotate on this for a second. I know it's kind of late. But I do, that has been something that's hit really home for me. And I'm always like, man, I wish I was a Wayne. I could just be like super kick ass at this one thing and have all this other, you know, but I'm not super deep in this one thing that people are looking for. So how do you navigate? And so I'm kind of like, I think it goes back to like what I've kind of taken the approach that you talked about, coming over to the business side and the politics, is I'm like, you know what, it really is about, I'm talking to like, people who are in marketing and things like that, and going like, how do I navigate myself? I feel like I have a lot of value to bring, but they don't. How do I find the people that aren't looking for what they don't realize what I could bring, right? Like they don't realize the amount more if they just open their eyes a little bit more, what more they could get. And it really comes down to what you're saying is like reverse engineering, like finding places that you want to go and getting in front of the people. Because I just recognize that for me, and I think this is important for people that are looking to like leave school and like get into professional areas. I think there's so much more to get. People are still people, and so to get past any of those things, you just got to connect with, like, go to conferences where this person's going to be. Like I think that there's ways to go around it. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking, because I feel the exact same way. I feel like I'm not gonna fit into anyone's algorithm. I'm not, and so the only way I'm gonna get to the places I want to go, and actually that's what this is. This is the skill. I want to be able to like facilitate conversations, like create content around people, ordinary people having conversations, and hone that skill. And I'm still like very new to this, and it's like but it's where I know I want to go. It's like the things that I'm doing are setting me up for, the next things that I'm going to. But I think that there's how I'm approaching it is like, I don't know, interested to hear kind of your viewpoint, Wayne, but like, because I think there's something valuable to say, like, I know I am not going to fit in those algorithms. And so it's to take your point, Oscar, I'm going to have to go at it a different way than most other people are, but there's still a way to access, like in this connected world, I could get to the people that I'm trying to, at least that's my thought. What are your thoughts, Wayne?
This is an area that I don't know that I'm a super expert at, just because, in my career, I've only had 2 jobs. Right. Like I've been out in the workforce for 15 years, and I've only had 2 jobs.
50? Just kidding.
Yeah. And so, I was at my first job for 11 years, which is a really long time to a lot of people our age and younger. But within that job, because it was such a big company, I got to move to a lot of different areas. And that's one of the things that I really liked about that employer, is that because of their scale, you got to, if you wanted to, you could go and stay in the same company, but do something totally different, or some aspect of your field that is separate from what you were doing before, right? But even then, looking back, the reason why I was able to make some of those jumps to different places were just because of the relationships that I had with other people, right? And the current role that I'm in, I got because I had a relationship with another person, right? That led me to where I'm at, right? And so I've been fortunate in my career to be able to leverage the network and leverage relationships to discover new opportunities. And I myself have been in your position, Oscar, of, let's try looking at, doing something else, and having to start from scratch where I have no network, where I have no connections, and I'm basically having to sell myself on paper. But, when you look at my paper, it's like, oh, it's not who I am, but it kind of is. But I don't know how to articulate that in a way that, makes it all impressive and cool and, as awesome as you guys are playing me up to be. Right. And so I'm not sure this isn't a satisfying answer, but, I'm in the same situation you are.
I will say that with the exception of like the first job I ever had when I went to go work at a grocery store, every job I've had after has been word of mouth. Like someone
Yeah.
said, hey, come over here. Like, hey, like I got this opening over here. You should probably come. Like literally, like I talked about it before, like the job I have now, it's always been that. And I've been, the last few years, I really invested in this one department or area to the point where I don't, like, I know people from other areas, but knowing somebody and working with them is different. So I think that's the part that, like, I don't have that piece right now where someone's coming and saying like, hey, come on, like you should come do this thing right now. And that's the part where I'm like, okay, well now I got to figure out how to do this on my own. I have no, the longer I sit here and stare at it and try to think about it, I'm just like, man, this is not gonna, I mean, the example I'll give is right before all this crazy COVID stuff happening, leadership was like trying to give me some different things to help me just be more out there, I guess. And they're like, hey, you've been selected to, you're going to redo the seating chart, which is sort of a lose-lose situation. Like no one's ever happy about getting their stuff moved.
Yeah.
You're never going to ace that for everyone, like just period, right? But I went in to talk to the exec about it, and I said, what are your expectations? And she mentioned a couple of things, and I said, okay, well, I'd like to meet with the leadership team, talk about what their needs are, and then I'll come back with, some recommendations or something, and we'll go from there. And she's like, yeah, I'd like you to come back with like 2. And I was like, okay. I was like, but she's like 2 or 3. And I was like, all right. I was like, but just between you and me, my goal is 1. And she's like, okay, good luck with that. Cause we have kind of like, and so she's like, yeah, good luck with that. But it was 2 weeks later, and I showed up. I presented this scenario. I had other ones, but I really just showed the one. They asked 2 questions. I said, yes, you could do that, but it's going to have these ramifications. Like I had already picked them off and had conversations.
Yeah.
And so by that point, seriously, 2 questions. I don't even think it was 5 minutes, unanimous agreement, done, we're done. Right. It's like, how do you quantify that? Right. Like that would have been, if I would have pulled them into a room, like it would have been arguments for hours in circles. But you can't, I mean, like, those are these weird little things where I feel like I've gotten good at talking to people, building trust, understanding what they're trying to do, helping them be part of that process, and then building consensus and go like to where when they get the answer in front of them, they're like, oh, yep, makes sense, let's go. Like you solved it for me and everybody else. It's like, it's not perfect, but that's actually as good as thing to get. I trust you, let's go. And
Oscar, what you just described to me doesn't sound all that different from design, right?
It's not. It
is. Let me help you make the connection there, right? When you make a design, you as a designer, you want to make the one design, and you're going to go through several iterations to get there. But you're not going to want to create 5 different A-level designs for whomever's going to pick it. You want to design the one where you went through and weighed all the different choices and the different directions you could have taken it, and come down to the one and be able to say, this is where the design is, and this is the one we're going to go with because of this and because of this and because of this. And if anybody tries to come in and say, well, it should have that font and it should have blah, 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 and you'd be like, well, if you did, it's going to look like junk, and it's going to have this effect, and it's going to do this, right? It's no different. I see them as the same.
You're correct. I think that's why sort of backwards stumbled into a lot of these things. It's because I see those interactions in the same way. Like I pick people off. I know who the smart people are who are very vocal. I go straight for them. I want their feedback immediately, because either they are legitimately valid in what they're going to say, or I need to know why I can't go that route. I'm not going to shy away. And like everyone's like, they were just like, make the decisions, present us 3, tell us which one it is, or just like enforce. People just follow, and I'm like, no, people just follow. Like go talk to them. Show them, say like, hey, look, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Let them break it apart. You don't have to answer all the things they say. Like, cool, great thoughts. Let me come back. And then I revise it. And I say, like, I swung by each manager 2, maybe 3 times in between meetings. Like they probably spent a total each of 5 to 8 minutes talking about this with me. Cause I was just like, hey, you got a sec? Come over here. And we walk to the side and I show them the thing. So here's what we talked about this, and I just picked them off separately. 5 to 10 minutes. Like seriously, they couldn't have done that in a whole hour, but because I was
No
just
way.
like, I iterated with them in wireframe format. And then I took it up into like, first I was like, hey, here's the groups that need to be near each other based on what you're saying. Proximity wise, this is the layout. This group needs to be next to this group. So are you good with that? Like, don't look at up, down, left, right. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. Cool. Now I can start applying the, the math of the, and so as we iterated through that, and they were like, well, I wish, it became, oh, look, you said you wanted that. Here's this thing. And they're like, well, what about this? And I'm like, well, if you do that, this person's going to lose that. We can totally, like, I never said no. I'm like, well, but once they saw they were getting what they really wanted, they were like, oh, you know what? No, that's cool. Let them have their, like, they kind of all, but anyway, but yes.
But that's what design is you
Totally.
got to bring all these elements together and make them fit in a cohesive way, right? And anyone can take those same elements and go a different direction with it, right? But they're going to have to go through the same process of trade-offs, right? And having to understand that. And so when anybody comes in to try to criticize it or say, well, this should be over here or that should be over there, you can say, you know what, I tried that, and this is what the ramifications would be if we did that. And it's the same to the situation that you're describing here.
I think that's one of the things I learned in design is like the more I did it and the more senior I got, yes, you get better at saying in this scenario there, a drop down has the highest probability as opposed to radio buttons of getting you what you need or is the best experience, right? But then you put it in front of people, even if you've done it 100 times in a similar situation, that the general rule is this. You actually put it in front of people and you see it doesn't work as well. And it sort of humbles you to say like, you never know what the right, it doesn't matter how much experience you have until you get it in front of people, you don't know what the right answer is. And so you learn as much as you can, you go with the highest probability thing, and then you put it and iterate from there, right? Like,
yep.
And it's never perfect. There's no way to hit 100%. Knowing that from the start, I think, anyway, yeah, it's, I still don't know how I'm going to solve the next job problem, but
you'll know how you solved it, and you'll know how it connected
in retrospect.
Yeah,
right. Someday.
Yeah, we've kind of gone way over, but I wanted to circle back, and I want to just kind of like finish off and hear everyone's thoughts. Kind of speaking specifically, like where my mind is going is, so we've all been, working in the workforce for, a decade or so, and have all this experience in design and technical background and working, really grown up through the mobile age and building for these experiences. So with that and knowing how things are changing moving forward, what are some of like your last kind of notes to anybody leaving college or like just getting into the workforce? What are, kind of just starting their career, and how I wanted to kind of be focused around how I'm trying to break down creativity applies to, you as an individual in your life and not just to design. So with that kind of like as a base, kind of your final thoughts on creativity and to someone who's starting their career, what would you say? We'll start with you, Wayne.
Oh, darn. I wanted a few more minutes. I guess the thing that would come immediately to my mind is don't get too hung up on doing just one thing or becoming an expert at just this one thing. Don't sell yourself short that as you explore different technologies and different mediums, to express your craft in software development or designing systems to interconnect and operate together or whatever the case might be from a technical perspective. Don't get hung up on the tools and don't get hung up on programming languages and don't get hung up on frameworks. I chose my own path to go deep on something, right? But I found that if I ignored all the things that were kind of around it, my usefulness was somewhat diminished, right? And so don't worry about going deep right now. Try to explore the most you can and get that breadth. until you find that one thing that just, lights your fire and drives you to, take that interest in technology and just do something crazy deep on it. Right. And you'll know it when you find it. But even when you do find that one deep thing that you're wanting to go into, don't let your horizontal T stem, get neglected either. There are still lots of other things to explore. There are new things all the time. And that's what I love. That's what I love about technology, is that there is always something new. And not all of it is good. Not all of it is the best. Not all of it is trash, right? But there's always something new, and don't be afraid to explore it.
That was really good. Oscar, what do you got?
So a couple of things. One, I think you mentioned like technology, but I would say that the beekeeping, even like that's relevant. Like it isn't, I think a lot of people starting out, so I'll pick on like developers for a minute that I work with, and I watch them. They're younger, and they're being around enough that I've seen the progression. And one, don't discredit things that have nothing to do with your day job, because you never know how they will interweave into your life.
110%, like, yes, absolutely.
Then it's like I see someone it could be a designer, but I'll say developer, like a developer coming in at like a level 3, and then there's 2, and then 1. So like I was talking to someone a few months back, and who's new, and he's just like, oh, I'm just trying to learn this new code base, this system. I need to get this thing going. And he's like, I just want to be an expert at this thing. And I'm saying like, okay, but I need you to think ahead 2 steps. So like what happens is some of these people get very deep in a specific thing, and they go 3, 2, 1, and then they want to get to a senior or lead. And the technical acumen may be super deep, but they haven't invested in the way that they interact with other people, the way they communicate ideas. And those very intelligent people will get passed up for senior and lead roles, because even though they are just dynamite, they can't communicate. And the more senior you get, the less your hand touches the code, the less you're pushing pixels. If you're a designer, it becomes more about communication and interactions with people. And you know, just like any language, if you're not actively in it, you'll start to lose a little bit. But overall, like I try to emphasize people starting out, like don't go so deep in a topic that you discredit other topics, and specifically the power of communication, because it's going to come down to that unless you want to stay just, an individual contributor. If your goal is to be management level or leadership in some way, even if you are touching the code, it's going to require the other piece. And they don't, at some point, a lot of people don't care about how technical you are, because if you can't communicate that to the rest of the team, then what good is it? And I felt like there was one last point I was going to make, which was, I don't know. So that's it.
I would just add that, that has bitten me so many times, Oscar. And that has been a very difficult lesson that I have had to learn. And you are absolutely correct.
There is a direct correlation between like the smartest people and their like the crazy smart ones usually tend to be like less social, and they hit this wall. And the worst part is when you see it happen and it kills their spirit, like, because they're like, well, I'm doing all the stuff. Why can't I? Why is this person? I could code circles around them. I could design circles. They're getting promoted and I'm not. What the heck, right? And it's like, it's because the next stage has nothing to do. It has very little to do with what you were doing before. You spent all this time, and as a 3-2-1, you're getting rewarded and patted on the head for like, oh, you can do that quicker. Oh, you can write that code in this amount of time. They get it in 2 lines and 1. Like, that's amazing. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh no, we don't need that anymore. We need someone that can lead a team that, like, I mean, yeah, you need to have that, but like, that's bare minimum. And it's like the thing that you were rewarded for ends up, you need to, like, they have to pivot and start investing and figuring out how to communicate, to lead people, and it's a whole different skill set. I think the sooner that you get that on your radar, doesn't matter what the role. I told my son is like, I don't care what role you have. If you invest in being a communicator, you're going to succeed.
Yep.
It doesn't
100%.
Anything. I can't think of a single, like, you want to play in the NBA? Good luck, because we don't have those genes. But like, it's still, if you're a great communicator, that's what's going to get you the biggest, like, the brand recognition, the endorsements. It doesn't matter if you're the server at Wendy's for your first job, like, server or the cashier. Like, if you're a great communicator, watch, like, you will bump up in, at the end of the day, communication wins. If you can combine that with some technical acumen and breadth or depth, like, I think that's where you get the big wins. But we didn't even talk about this. I'm totally spinning it on a tangent now, but.
No, I think it's really good.
Your turn, Mark.
All right. I think, I don't know. I was really focused on what you guys were saying. I think you hit some really good points. I guess like, to me, the biggest thing that I would say, and this kind of hits home, like, back to, like, my brand and, like, why I do what I do, is don't, with all your desire to become, to get into working and do all these things, don't forget to uncover who you are, right? Like, that is, I think, one of the biggest things. You think that you come into a place and you have to fill a role, and really, like, you need to take the time to discover who you are, and these pieces will be a conduit, will be the vehicle that will teach you the things about yourself that you wouldn't have achieved otherwise. And I really think that I think you were saying it, Wayne, definitely don't be afraid to try a bunch of things, a bunch of different jobs, a bunch of different roles, things that, like, Oscar, you do this really well, when it's just like, sure, I'll take that task. Like, I've never done that before. I've never, I'll go try it out. I think that we overlook those things, thinking that we have to get to the next level. And if you just stop and just go, like really think about what it's doing to you. Like, what is it that you're finding out about yourself and about other people? Like, look at Oscar, this is one of the things I learned from you. It's like, when you come into another team, who are the high performers? Why are they high performing? Like, what are the traits they have? Like, really having that introspection in yourself and in other people, and taking an interest in what they have to say. I think that will pay dividends, going forward. And your tastes and your desires will kind of fluctuate throughout the years, and you'll find things you like and you don't like, but always throughout all of it needs to be like, who is it that these things are kind of pulling out inside of me? I just think that that's, like, a huge part that we overlook as a society. We forget to, especially when you're young, we think we have to go live the life when we don't even really know who we are yet. So that would be, like, my big thing. Don't forget to, like, find out who you are.
I think you reminded me of the last thing, which was just like, you don't, as humans, for the most part, we don't learn anything unless we fail. Like, you don't learn unless you fail. So hurry up and start failing. Like, the faster you start failing, the faster you want to be a great public speaker, go start doing that stupid thing, because that's how you get there. Like, the irony of the fact that you have to fail so that you never have to fail again at that thing, right? Like, if you want to never fail public speaking, go start doing the stupid thing. And it's like, everyone wants to run, but, like, a baby doesn't get up and start, like, you fall over. Like, just everyone's so scared that they're like, need to be this like, oh, I'm not going to do it. Like, I can't run. So, like, why am I going to do a thing? And I'm like, well, just freaking baby step it. Who cares? You're doing it better. No one was going to do it anyway. At least you did something.
It's funny you mentioned that. And I'm going to tie the very beginning of this to back to the end here. Learning cross-country skiing is a pretty scary thing to do on your own. And no kidding, the very first thing that I learned how to do was, how do I get back up after I've fallen? Like, I didn't even put skis on before I learned, okay, this is what I got to do. And so as soon as I got those on, I threw myself to the ground and, had to translate something that I saw somebody do into me doing it. And, all right, now I know how to, get back up and keep going once I wreck. Right. And it's funny is a week after starting that, I went to a free day at the Nordic Center that we have here in Pocatello. And on that free day is when all the people who don't know how to ski, show up, because it's free and they don't have to, pay any money to try this thing. Right. And it's always fun to see all these new people, going through the struggle. And here it was only a week later, and I'm seeing people struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with, or even still learning. And it's funny is somebody fell down and they're like, oh, and I'm like, listen, there are only two types of skiers: those who have fallen down and those who have not yet fallen down. And and so it's like falling down is not a big deal, because guess what? I've been, cross country skiing now for, a couple seasons, and guess what? I still face plant. I still fall down, and that's okay. It's all good.
And the more you do it, the less likely that it is probably to happen in the future, right? Like you start to learn from those. Oh, I leaned a little too left. To the right. I put too much weight over here, right? Like over time, that starts to lessen, but you have to fall to. So just start falling. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Hurry up, start falling.
And even being more experienced in falling, learning to laugh about it. Yep. I remember this last season. I remember on this particular trail, there's this really sharp hairpin turn, and I took it way too fast, and I literally flew off of the trail and face planted in the snow. And thankfully there wasn't a rock right where my head landed, right? But once I able to pull myself up, I took a picture of it, and it's like, I just face planted. This is awesome, and just get up and try again.
I don't know. I don't feel that way when things aren't working as much. Like, it's fun to talk about that, but in real life, like, I'm actually going through it right now where I'm like, there's so many times that I'm like, am I stupid for doing this stuff? I want people to recognize, like, I think it is important to fail, but there are those times, right, when you're like, what am I doing? Like, I don't know. I think if you have those things, I want people to feel very normal and thinking, man, I'm falling a lot. Like, I want to not fall anymore. Okay, how can I do that? Like, I think that's an important thing to think about. Like, it is, I agree with what you guys are saying. And then, like, in the beginning, I think this is like my magazines. Like, when I go back and look at them, like, the first magazine was like, woo, I'm doing this thing. And then the second one, the title is, hard work is hard work. It's like, I've been now doing the second one, and I've committed to doing 10. And I'm like, dude, this is no joke. Like, this is like legit hard. And I think it's okay to recognize that, like, once the excitement of starting wears off, there's going to be those moments when you're like,
oh, absolutely.
I don't know about, like, I keep falling. Maybe I will just always fall. Maybe I'm just that person. And you just gotta you're going to have those moments, right? And it's good to laugh about them, but recognize that there's going to be those times when you're not laughing and you don't think it's funny, and you're like, no, I really wanted to do good. And you just have to keep working at it. Like, the people that succeed are the ones that just don't give up. Like, they literally just, like, keep going. They keep failing and keep failing, even when it's not fun, even when you don't like it. And I feel like that's part of, like, the situation I'm in, but it's like, each time I'm failing now, it's like, I need to, like, I don't want to fail anymore, and it's not that fun. And so how do I adjust myself? Because I'm not laughing. Like, this is 6 years of doing this, and, like, how do I figure this thing out? It's like, when you start doing, like, a design for something, there's you do 100 different sketches, because it takes that, the first, several, like, or things, and then the next kind of like 20, you really kind of dig. And it's really like those last 40 that you're just like, man, I've done everything. I've already done 60 different ideas around this concept. Like, how else can I illustrate this thing?
Yeah.
And that's when you really start, like, getting past the everything that you've seen and getting to originality. And it's the price you pay, and it's really hard. And so I want people to feel there are those times when just like it sucks.
Oh, there
You know?
absolutely is. And going back to cross country skiing, like I'm only telling you about the happy parts, right?
Right.
I didn't tell you about the parts where I was on that same trail a year earlier, and I, for the life of me, could not figure out how to do sharper turns at all. And I kept eating it, and I kept getting pissed, and I kept getting frustrated because I see all
Yeah.
these people having a good time, and here I am eating ice and, you know, pulling sagebrush out from between my teeth, right? And there are going to be moments like that, and we shouldn't kid ourselves, right? But I think one of the skills that I have learned in my experiences these past 3 years is to find the positive in everything that you're doing.
Mm.
And sometimes it is really stupid hard to find what is going good or what is good in this really, really crappy situation. But I guarantee you that if you will spend a little modicum of time and thought, you can, and you will find something positive to come out of it, right? And that in and of itself is something that I have learned that has really informed me about, you know, just life in general, that crappy stuff can happen, but you can still be happy and you can still find good things about the crappiness that might be around you.
Love it.
Yeah. I like that.
So the question that I wanted to pose both of you, you know, was related to conflict and creativity, right?
Yes, I love it.
And
My wheelhouse
you know,
now.
how, you know, I think all of us would probably agree that conflict breeds creativity, but then there's a boundary that you cross from being helpful
That you
into
can cross.
antagonistic.
That you can cross, not that you. I don't know. I feel like you imply that you will cross it.
No. You can cross, and what I'm implying here is there's an area in which the conflict is helping, you know, the travail of labor give birth to the beauty of some idea.
Totally.
But there's also a territory where you cross a line and you're actually destroying ideas and destroying people. And where do you guys see that, as far as how does conflict help your creativity, and how do you make sure that you stay out of that line that crosses into destruction?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. I don't know if we want to let Mark go first.
Go ahead with your thoughts. Like that's a great question.
So like this ties back to what I've been sort of most fascinated with the last 2 or 3 years, and it goes back to just the team dynamics and sort of understanding like what does the ideal team look like and how do I get them there, and just appreciating the fact that I had all those different teams and recognizing that you need that conflict. And so and I just had a conversation with some fellow coworkers recently. So I'm in a position now where I'm now sort of being asked to be sort of like the lead of peers. Like I don't have a job title difference, but and so I'm hoping to facilitate some conversations to get them to change the way they're thinking. And this topic came up. It's so I guess when you boil down the difference, like there's some people that can come to you and walk up to you and say, that shirt looks stupid on you. And you'll kind of laugh and you're like, you're right, I should change it. And someone else could walk up and they say the exact same sentence and you're like, you know what? F you, man. Like you're angry about it. And what's the difference between those two people? Like, why can one person say the exact same sentence as someone else and you get a different response? And ultimately, as you boil it down, it comes down to either a lack of trust or a fear. Like you don't trust the other person. Like one person you inherently trust, that you know that their motivations are aligned with you. And in another situation, you don't know, like you feel like, are they attacking me? Are they, you know what I mean? Like, so, and so to get to a place where you can like have those conversations, you have to invest in building of trust. And when we think about team dynamics, I think we think of the work. We think of it as a checklist of things that need to get done, how to get through it. And I was trying to help facilitate a conversation of the team about, hey, you guys are leaders of this group, and it's your job to, if you sense hesitation from someone that they're not saying, or it's something like they're quieter than you, like go follow up after, go check in, like have a one-on-one with them individually, get to know them as a person. And you know, somebody was sort of like, yeah, that's great and all, but I want to get to a place where I don't need to do that. I don't want to have to worry about, we just all get the job done, right? And that's where I said, I flipped that question back on him, and I said, okay, let's rewind it. Why are they not speaking up? Right? Like you're doing this. He's like, I don't want to have to worry about someone not speaking up. I want them all to speak up, to say if, you know, something's bothering them, if they're not on the right track. And I said, why would they not speak up? It's because they're scared of something. Either they don't trust you, they don't trust the group, right? Like the catch-22 is you have to invest in that person and getting to know you, unrelated to the work. Like, who are you? Like, where'd you come from? Like, what are you up to? Like, how are your kids? Like those things that people dismiss.
But being genuine about that.
Yes, correct. Like you have to acknowledge the fact that like you have to be genuine. Like go invest in those people and get them to invest in each other, so that they can have, because you cannot get there. Like the faster you get to those things, like you need them to. And so, you know, how fast can you get people to trust each other has sort of been my obsession over the last year of like, like, oh, cool. I get a new makeup of team every like 3 weeks, and I have 2 or 3 of them at a time. So I'm going to mix and match these different techniques of different things based on locale, how many people are here, what the ratio of there, how well they know each other. But ultimately it's just, how do you get to that as fast as possible? They need to know each other and trust. You need to have that trust within each other. So like, I feel like Mark could pull something up that he makes, and I could probably, you know, say all kinds of stuff tearing it apart. And I'm not fearful that he's going to take it the wrong way, because he and I have that we've talked enough times. Like he knows, like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just an opinion, first of all, but, you know, it's all, you know, it's all for a good cause, right? Like we're on the same team. I think, well, anyway, I guess that's the gist of it. I think it all boils, I don't think people put enough emphasis on trust and investing in the
relationships,
the stuff that's in between the work. Like if you want the work to do well, the irony is you need to not focus on the work for a minute. Like, anyway, sorry. What's up, Mark?
So your question was what was your question again?
So my question relates to conflict and creativity, and how do you keep yourself in the area where the conflict is actually being constructive as opposed to being destructive, either to the creative process or to individual people themselves?
Well, so I don't know. I just challenge that. I think that it might be destructive, and I think the biggest thing, to me, the most important thing is it's never about, at least when you're creating something, when it's working in a team, it's never about the individuals. Like the critiques, egos aside, is what needs to happen when you're coming in. We're talking about this product. It's outside of any one of us.
I disagree.
And so, oh really?
Yeah. Keep going.
Elaborate.
Yeah.
Elaborate, Oscar.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean you disagree?
So I think you're being too idealistic. And I think, yes, you can be there, but that's not, you don't get there like day one. And you can take that approach, but I think you run the risk of falling outside of Wayne's circle. I think, so I'll take back, like, I'll go back to when I first went from working for myself. I knew what I was doing. I decided I wanted a 9 to 5. I took a big pay cut to come to the company I'm at now so I could have a straight up 9 to 5. And I get there and they call me in a room and they tell me what they're working on. And I start like poking holes. I'm like, okay, but what about this? And like, I would point out things that were just straight up stupid. Like, I just won't, I mean, and I'll tell you what, it didn't work. Like, I was being objective. I pushed back. And Mark, you've heard us say before, I ended up getting to the point where I was ready to just walk out. And one of the, I came down to the area in which we all met each other in, and I came to vent to that lead designer at the time, and she sort of was like, just sit tight for, like, don't walk out, just sit tight. I was like, I don't need this. I can go back to my, clients. Like, I'm good. And she's like, just sit tight for a minute. And so next thing I know, it was like a week or two later, straight up lateral transfer, new department. And that was the first, and Mark knows this because I talk about this a lot. That was the first turning point for me where I was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong, because I know without a shadow of a doubt, if you go back and you ask anyone on those teams, they will tell, like, I would bet my life savings, they will tell you that what we produced, like, yeah, I pushed back on them. I slowed us down because they want to do this, and it was, no. I pushed back, and we had a better solution than what they would have done if I had just agreed with them. Like, I know for a fact, we've talked through this enough with them, we debated on it, and we tested it, like, we put it out. There is not a single person that would say that original thing they brought me was better than what we did by a long shot. But when it came down to it, and they said, we're going to just lateral transfer this dude, no interview, no fight, they were happy to get rid of me, right? And I was like, I'm doing something wrong. It was
I don't think that was a fault on your part, though. No, because again, it comes back when I said, like, egos have to go to the side. Apparently, their egos did not go.
That's not how humans work.
No, you're right. You're right. I think your precursor was that there needs to be a trust. It can't just be you're walking in. You need to have what I'm gonna kind of going off of. If you've read Creativity Inc. and they talk about the brain trust, it's not just anybody that you take your stuff to. It's other creatives that you trust, that you're able to come in and be like, I don't just want to hear from anybody. Like, other directors that have done movies, like, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna tear this thing apart because it's not about me. It's about creating a great product, and I'm gonna hear what they have to say. And I think a lot rides on that director, that initial person that brings it to the group needs to go. They need to be open to the acceptance. And I think this is a big thing. Sure. I think a lot of times they bring people in to check a box with no intention of actually wanting to make changes, because in their minds they were good with what they had, but they feel like, well, let's just double check. But they don't really actually want to hear it.
But there's the way that it should work in that environment. Like, yes, that's great, but that doesn't just happen magically. And if you want to duplicate that, then it becomes, you have to work to get to that. Like, I guess that's where I'm at, is like, I agree with you to some extent, except that the vast majority, 99% of the time in the world, I'll even say, that is not the case. You have to earn that. Like, there's a reason that brain trust, like the Pixar was Pixar then, and it was because of that random, like, I don't know if it was purposeful or random, but like that way that culture was set up there was like allowed that for that to happen. And so if you want that to happen, you have to purposefully create that, and like you have to, and I think that's the hard part people overlook. They say, oh, it should be like this. Yeah, it should, but you gotta invest the time to, like,
you gotta earn it.
I totally agree, but it's also something that, like, you as the individual have to come in, and it's not about tearing it down. It's about, like, you do this now. I think that, like, the approach is like, well, why did you do that? Like, it's curiosity about the decisions that were made versus, I don't like this thing you did. So it's all in the approach. Right? This goes back to, like, the communication. And when you come in, I think me walking into any team, just the way I think, I'm coming in not trying to like tear down their idea, but trying to like understand how they got to this idea.
Yeah.
And maybe they're right. Like I'm trying to go, like, I think that it goes, the humility needs to be on you, the individual. When you see something, you're like, instead of thinking like that's probably wrong, you have to be like, maybe I'm wrong for like, I think that's the approach I always take. I never think I'm right. I definitely have a point of view, but let me understand before being understood. Like, let me figure out what took you to this. Walk me through that path. And I think you have to, like, if you don't have that trust, that's how you build it, is coming in and just saying, hey, I just want to understand how we got here. And I think that's one of the things in some of the projects. We went from, a team that we were working with, finding out we were doing some kind of research and being like, hey, this is our territory. And kind of like you, Oscar, like I took that and was like, man, I really want, like, I don't want them to feel that way. And so we had another idea, and I went to them and was like, hey, you guys are doing work on this. I want to make sure that the voice is the same, like everything that's coming out of it. And you guys have done a ton of work. Like they need to feel like you give them the respect, because they have done a lot of work. Right. And then I went from this person going like, why the heck are you doing any of this, to them fighting on my behalf. Them going like, no, we need to do this thing. And that happened by me going in and going like, hey, dude, I recognize what you've done, right? It takes a lot on the individual.
Totally. Everyone wants trust, but no one wants to give it.
Nobody wants to work for
it. It's not even work for it. Like, you have to give it to someone before you can receive it. Like that's the fastest thing, is like to say like, I disagree, but I'm going to support you. Like, let's do this thing. Right. And after you do that, and if it doesn't, like, if it works, then, hey, I'm wrong. Like, cool, the right thing happened. Right. But if it doesn't, then I say like, okay, well, we tried your thing. Like, cool. And people are like, okay, yeah, let's try yours now. Cause I went all in on there. You know what I mean? Like, I mentioned my things, I couldn't convince them. And so I'm like, let's do it then. Like and that's sort of another thing I tell people all the time. Like my mantra is sort of like, if I can't convince you of something in 2 minutes, in 120 seconds, then, or vice versa, then neither of us have enough data. There's no point in continuing that argument, because like we need to either go get more data or pick one and go test it and then circle back, because there's no point in having a 5-10 minute argument at that point.
Yeah.
You either have the data to convince someone or you don't. And so I'll have the conversation. I'm like, do I believe that I can get that data? If not, well, let's do your thing then. Like, all right, you know what? You could be right. So I'll admit that. Let's just do yours, as long as you're cool with trying mine afterwards. Yes, then let's go. Because I'm happy to be wrong. But once again, the faster you give your trust, like you show them, like, hey, like I used to say it was like, when someone goes and sees a stray dog, like they always put their hand out, like you can smell my hand first, and then you can pet it. Like you got to put your hand out and let them smell it. You have to go risk getting bitten and put your hand out there and be like, all right, I'm telling you, it's cool. Like I'm gonna bow to your thing, or I'm gonna,
I think let's end there. That was, man, we went way over, but I'm happy to keep talking. I'm just gonna stop the recording. So.